Hey everybody, welcome to Campus to Contracts, and we are joined as always. Mason, always good to see you. How are you feeling after the transfer portal of crazy?
Dangerous, feeling dangerous. Transfer portal was definitely indeed crazy. A lot of shifts, a lot of movement, a lot of players getting paid, a lot of players moving up and down in, college football, college sports in general. So, we're going to see a lot of completely new rosters. Some universities actually, completely switch their rosters after they finish their spring ball. And, somewhere
you talked about, if you look at other episodes, you've been talking about this. When you look at the coaches are always reevaluating their talent to see what they can get. And if they're not happy with what they got, guess what? They go searching through the transfer pile. And unlike your garage sale at your local neighborhood, the transfer portal has quite a few wonderful, wonderful players that go and enter it. So you can revamp your roster pretty quickly in a matter of 10 days.
In a matter of 2 days.
Very quickly, yes. Things happen fast. So, wake up, everybody. Things are happening.
I think last episode I said that Nico Amalivera wasn't going to last 3 days. He didn't even last 1 day.
And the overall outlook is that he lost on the transfer portal, should have just stayed with Tennessee. And we both talked about that in the previous episode that, going back home, being close to his family, going to UCLA may not be a bad thing at all. We'll see how it ends up because, again, if you're playing, you have tape. If you play, you have tape. And if you have tape, that's a good thing. And whether you go up or down, the biggest thing that you look at as an agent is you want your player to play and you want to have film so you can show people about the opportunities that are in the future.
Yeah. You want to know what's very interesting, actually, what we should talk about, too, since we're a little bit on this, is the Quinn Ewers situation in the draft that just occurred, right? So he was actually offered, rumor is, about $8 million to go to another college for his last years of eligibility. I believe last year of eligibility.
So to leave the University of Texas, Quinn Ewers was the starting quarterback of Texas, leave University of Texas, spend another year in college with an $8 million rumored deal. We have nothing confirming this. He went into the draft.
And his contract is now 4 years, $4.3 million.
Wow. That is that's unheard of 10 years ago, obviously. It's unheard of when you went to school. What's unheard of 3-4 years ago? So if he would have stayed, played another year, he would have gotten NIL money, a contract of about $8 million, roughly. Let's just say it's plus or minus. Let's say it's low end 4, high end 8. He's now offered, and he was drafted, I believe, in the 6th round or 7th?
It was late. 7th round, I believe. 7th round. Yeah, 7th round.
And then they offered him a very, for quarterback, that is not a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's still a deal.
He only got like 130 guaranteed, or signing bonus.
130K.
Yeah, 130K. It's probably what he made like in a week at Texas.
Well, I mean, this is part of that relationship that we talk about. This is part of the evaluation of this, and everyone wants to look back at their life, woulda, coulda, shoulda's. I think everyone does that. Everyone looks back and they're like, man, if I would have just done this instead of this, bought this instead of that, did A instead of B, I would be here. In all reality, you would end up probably in the same spot. But when you look at these decisions, especially in your position, because your job is to elevate and make sure the player gets the most out of the talent that they have, because you only have a short lifespan in this marketplace, as we've talked about. So you look at all this as you are trying to advise your players, young and old, what to do and where to go to keep playing this game if they want to make money playing the game.
In this situation, I would have to make sure, absolutely sure, that he was going to get drafted to a point where he was going to be making more than that $8 million. Right?
And in the quarterback realm, I'm sure you can talk to teams and GMs and get a flavor of where your player is going to be. I don't think anyone projected Quinn to be in the top 3 rounds.
I'm not sure. Public projections and what actually occurs are completely off. Obviously, you could look at Stuart Sanders. Yeah, he dropped to the 5th round, right? So it's not so much about what are the projections. You just have to really make sure okay, this guy's going to go in the first 2 days. Now, the reason why I say that is because, not only does he get the $8 million, but maybe that was also a sign that he needed to stay in college and develop even more so that he can guarantee a good spot, in the NFL. Because getting drafted in the 7th round doesn't mean you're making the team. You still have to fight for the team, right? The only
just
thing
to be like a
really
third string quarterback or what have you, and you're the new quarterback. Again, what people don't realize is if you're not a top tier draft pick as a quarterback, you get the playbook of a quarterback, and we've talked about you're already in rare air, and now you have the entire playbook to digest. So like even Sanders, who's a 5th round draft pick, now it's a question of, hey kid, you got to learn all this quickly because you can't come to the camp and not know it, and then you're going to be competing with other quarterbacks. So how many reps do they get? How much time do they get? How much time are you going to give a player in a later round? Completely different than like a defensive back where you have 3 or 4, you're bringing them in and out. You have first team, second team, and quarterback. To your point, you have first team and second team. That's 2 quarterbacks, everybody. So do the math. There's not a lot of reps for a quarterback. They're not doing 7-on-7 drills, and they certainly don't want to hurt their players or wear all the team out. So where are you getting the reps? How are you able to show this? And then if you go to the preseason, which has become lackluster at best, how do you even evaluate some of these quarterbacks when you're playing such vanilla? I mean, the defense is about as vanilla as it gets. The offense scales back. So it's a difficult process to evaluate your own talent in the NFL because of the practices.
Yeah, I mean, and in some cases, some teams in rookie minicamp, you don't even have a football. Like, you're not even doing that much. So, it depends on which team that you go to, obviously. In the Shedeur Sanders situation, he's going to be fighting an uphill battle. There's 5 quarterbacks in that room.
That is a crazy amount of quarterbacks, Flacco, everybody.
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, and then him. So, no team is keeping 5 quarterbacks. And there's a lot of good talent in that quarterback room. So, being drafted in the 5th round has some weight. Definitely has some weight, but we'll see how much weight it really has. And wish him nothing but the best, though.
And when you have 5 quarterbacks, they're typically cutting pretty early because you can't keep all 5 for a long time.
No, not really.
Well, your brother is in the running back world.
Not
how many
anymore.
Plays
receiver now.
So your brother's been played in the professional league. So when he was a running back, how many running backs would they carry in the in the preseason? Like, I would imagine
in the preseason it was like 6.
And how many cross over to the actual NFL roster?
3 on the active roster and 1 on the practice roster.
So, and running back, they cut 2. And in a quarterback, you probably would have 3. You have 2 for sure.
3 at the. You have 2. You have 2, 3 at the max.
Yes.
But sometimes you have a player who could play multiple positions. Like, so for example, in Atlanta, they had a player named Felipe Franks. He, on the roster, was a tight end, but he was a quarterback. So, just in case, he was that 3rd string quarterback. But he also played tight end. He was a great athlete. He was on special teams as well. So, versatility is always great to have, especially if you're just not the pure starter.
So Quinn gets drafted in the 7th round. The question then you ask, which is pretty good, is what was his management team looking at? Again, the other thing that I would look at from his perspective is if he stays in college and performs poorly compared to what he performed at Texas, and then he's not drafted at all.
Yes, but, he also doubled his salary in 1 year, which would have been equal to the next 4 years. Right? Like, he doubled his salary because he's only making $4 million in the next 4 years, whereas he would have made $8 million in 1 year. Not even 1 year, half a season, 1 fall.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's 6 months.
Crazy to evaluate. Again, it's money math now. And for those that don't know, and if you haven't learned yet, money math is different than regular math. And if you don't know money math, sorry, don't know what to tell you. Life's kind of run by money math. So maybe you should do a little studying on the money math. So that's interesting from a college perspective, but you have other interesting stats and figures because obviously we have 3 leagues that are ongoing outside of the NFL. Everyone focuses on the NFL, but you have players in all leagues, all divisions trying to make it to the NFL. So when you don't get drafted, you don't get played. We have a lot of stories of people who come up from these other leagues that end up making it to the NFL. So you have to decipher what's the best move for players who aren't drafted or don't get the NFL opportunity. Talk about the 3 leagues and where these players have possible opportunities if they want to continue to play football.
Well, it is a big timing thing. So right now you have the UFL, that's an American Spring League league. Then you have the CFL, that's pretty much a summer through fall Canadian professional football league. And you have IFL, indoor football. Indoor football is pretty much starting up right now. They got pretty much, getting their rosters right. But the UFL is actually about to end. They're about a few weeks shy of, their season ending. But, there's still the ability for players to jump onto those rosters if they want to as a 2025 draft class player. But right now, the biggest, opportunity is for guys to go to the CFL, to go up north to play. Their season starts at the end of May. They've already started rookie minicamp right now. And that season lasts through November. And that would be, giving guys the ability to play a full year's worth of football or full season's worth of football and give themselves a nice shot, a nice opportunity to get looked at by NFL teams and scouts in December and January and hopefully get a futures contract to play in the NFL next year.
And just so people who don't know, just to remind them, if you play in the CFL, you cannot come down at the end of November and get signed by the NFL for that season. You can get signed for the following season, but you can't get signed for the current season.
Look at you learning the rules, baby.
So, again, that's hard for players to hear because if you play in the CFL, it's like, well, I gave up a year of eligibility in the NFL, which is what you are doing. But to your point, you may not play at all if you don't have a team, number one, and if you can't make a team, because you can go and try to walk on to an NFL team. I'm sure you can do that. You can get an invite. So there is that, but then chances you'll be a practice squad player versus a player who's getting reps on the field, then you got to say, well, what's better for my future? And I'm sure there's pay involved in that. So for those that know, the Arena Football League is going to happen right now. So if you have players right now who are looking at the CFL, tell me what are some of the challenges that they have and what are some of the things that they're struggling or even things that you struggle with in these conversations with them?
So when you have a guy who's looking at trying to transition to the CFL, the first thing that we do have to ask, that I ask as an agent is, do you even have a passport? If you don't have a passport, you're not even allowed to go. And a lot of these guys don't have passports, surprisingly enough. They just don't have one. So if you don't have a passport, the conversation ends right there. You better get one in the next, as soon as possible. But, the conversation ends right there if you don't have a passport. The second biggest thing is that when you go up there, if you do get on the team, if you get an invite to camp or rookie mini camp or whatever the situation is, you're not competing against the entire roster. There's going to be half a roster full of Canadians, half a roster full of Americans. The Canadians are competing with the Canadians for roster spots, and the Americans are competing with Americans for roster spots. So you're not, competing with the entire position group, per se. If you're in a group of 10 guys and 5 of them are Canadian and the other 5 are American, you're competing with those 5 Americans or you're competing with those 5 Canadians. It's not, I'm better than a majority of the players here. No, are you better than the majority of the Canadians? Are you better than the majority of the Americans? That's how that works. So that number issue causes a lot of guys to also not make the team that are also very talented. It's very hard to make a CFL franchise roster. Very hard. Because numbers.
Does the NFL look at that when you make a CFL roster? Does it look at that positively? If you're looking at joining the NFL, like, you made a CFL roster, we'll look at you?
I don't think they care. You just have to perform. At the end of the day, it's not up to the NFL who makes CFL rosters. It's up to the CFL people. It's up to those administrators and GMs and coaches. And once you make the team, if you play well, then the NFL takes a look at your film, takes a look at your progression, takes a look at your production, and then we get to decide if we want to work you out in December and January. And if you perform at that workout, you could possibly get a futures contract. And you could, have a chance to be in camp that following season.
So what are you telling the players that, have these opportunities? Are you just telling them this is the pathway for you to possibly play in the NFL? Are those conversations difficult? Are they easy? Do they understand it? Is it hard to explain that path or the possibility of what it may or may not look like for their future?
Well, the conversation isn't hard because what I explained to them is that if they stop playing If they stop playing, then it's almost guaranteed they won't make it back to the NFL. You got to get on a team. You got to play. You got to perform. You got to produce. As long as you're doing that, you always have a shot. You can consistently play yourself out of that bad situation. So telling those guys that they need to go up there isn't a hard conversation for me, especially if they're dedicated to the sport and still want to make it back. But I do tell them that the rules are way different. The game is very different. A lot of guys think that they might be playing out of position when they go up there, but I just got to let them know, like, hey, look, this is what you got to do. You got to perform at what those coaches up there, what those general managers up there expect you to perform as. You got to do what you got to do.
Right. At the end of the day, nothing beats film. We've talked about that with college athletes going from D2 to D1, whatever it may be. Nothing beats tape. Nothing beats seeing what the player has. Because if you were to go back to draft day and you look at good NFL quarterbacks, great NFL quarterbacks, where you find them, it's still a mystery. I think when, as a fan, when you look at these GMs, because it's not like the GMs are trying to not find the next great quarterback. Their job is to find the next great one. So It just shows you how difficult it is to find that position and to hit with that position. Because if you look at previous drafts, it's hard to hit on those positions. And then again, when I look at film, you can't have enough of it.
Absolutely. And it's very important that you get relevant and recent film.
So that even goes back to even when you're talking to the kids, because you have such a wide variety now, because you can help out kids that are, in high school, before high school. You can help out kids in college now. Then you can help out the professionals as they're trying to make that leap. So you get a nice wide variety, where before 10 years ago, you would just be helping out the players that leave college. So now you have this much bigger variety, and this landscape has changed a lot. I think it's for the benefit of the player, but it also, from your perspective, when you look at this variety, obviously what you're saying to somebody who's in 8th or 7th grade or 9th or 10th grade is a heck of a lot different than what you're telling people who leave college, but everything still stays the same. Film, where are you playing? What are you preparing for? Where do you want to go? What does it look like? And then also what things are changing, because in 4 years, this whole market has changed drastically in 4 years. And then we look at the last year, and both of us are like, wow, it's changed quite a bit in the last year.
Yeah, everything changes. Everything is changing. But it is the same process. Even doesn't matter if I have an 8th grader all the way to my 7-year vet. The process is still the same. Film, work hard, eat right, study, do all the things necessary to be the best you can be.
I was laughing. I was listening to, I think it was an ex-professional athlete talk about what it takes to be a great professional athlete. And they just basically said, you have to live a very boring life.
Yeah.
Like what you just said is 100% right. You have to eat well. You have to take care of your body, which means you got to get in bed on time. It means you got to train every day. You got to be consistent. And it's like, if you look at someone's life, you're like, this is not the same. And I understand when you're in your 20s, you can certainly add a lot of extracurricular activities to that and still be okay. But at the end of the day, if you're focused and you work really hard, and you're consistent, and it's crazy because the vets, the guys that have had long careers, they are religious about their bedtime. They're religious about their food habits. They're religious about their workouts. I mean, they don't take a day off, and everyone's like, well, this is not that exciting. And it's like, yeah, to be really great, you have to really be diligent.
No days off, just hours.
So, well, when you look at your Canadian players that are trying to make it, I know you have several there. What happens to those that don't make it? What are their opportunities? Can they jump onto the AFL pretty quickly, or do they have many options when they look at that? Do they have to go over to Europe? Like, what are they looking at for options if the Canadian Football League doesn't work out for those players?
Okay, so the UFL, I believe you meant to say. The UFL, because it's ending, you can jump on for those last few games. The European Football League, obviously you can go there. There's a league in Mexico. There's a league in Japan. There's all types of indoor leagues in America. You just try to get them on a team. You just try to get them playing. You got to keep them playing, and as long as they're playing, they have a chance. They really do. And a lot of the guys, sometimes their ego gets in the way, their pride gets in the way, and they're like, oh, I don't want to play indoor, or I don't want to play in Europe, or I don't want to play this, I don't want to play that. It's just got to be NFL or bust, or it's got to be NFL or UFO or bust, or NFL, UFO or CFL or bust, right? So you run into that every now and then, but, you know, we can always get them into another place. If you made it to a rookie mini camp in the CFL, you could pretty much get invited to any other lower, you know, tier football league.
You just have to. Is it hard to convince players that these options are good options? Like when you're saying you have to help people with the ego, I mean, I understand that. There's egos in every industry. I can't imagine it's any different, especially when you have done as much work or have played in levels that are amazing, and now you have to take a different path. I'm sure that's a prideful hurt thing, but is it hard to convince folks, or do you just tell them this is the breaks and this is what you got to do? And if you're open to that, great. If you're not, that's fine.
It depends on the player. I've had a player that started in camp in the NFL, didn't make the team. Then he went to the CFL, didn't make the team. Now what do I tell him? Are we just going to keep going down? That's what he should do, but that's not what he wants to do, right?
But you can't.
There's no other options.
You can't change the facts. That's the problem. Like, the facts are the facts. He didn't make the teams.
Yeah, he didn't make the teams. But the fact is that he got to an NFL camp, played well in the camp, I might note. It's very hard to convince someone to go from the NFL to indoor football. Very, very difficult. Very difficult.
And when you have several players, obviously you don't have just one player. When you have lots of players and you're looking at this from that perspective, are you kind of like you're washing your hands of it? You're like, I've told you your options. If you want to take them, I'm here for you, but this is what I think you should do. And if the person's like, I'm not interested, I mean...
If they're not interested, we just wait. If something else comes around. If nothing else comes around, then there's nothing else I can do.
You're not Again, the reality is the reality. You're not creating a league for him, or you're not suddenly like, oh, look, we have this brand new league. These are the leagues. This is where you have to go. These are the filters. There's no surprise. Like if you play in Japan or Europe, this is the level that it's at.
Yeah, something will change. Eventually they're going to be like, okay, what do I got to do to get there? And they'll give in, right? Or they might need money, and then they'll give in from that reason. Or whatever the case is, they'll have a reason to give in. They'll have a reason.
Do you feel with these college contracts and leaving college, do you feel that it skews them to think that the next level is going to be as successful as the level they're in right now?
No. I don't think that skews what talent is versus what talent isn't. It's not easy to be in the NFL. It's not easy to make it there, and it's not even as easy to make it while you're there. Right? And then stay there is a whole nother ballgame.
I mean, you just mentioned your brother earlier. For those that don't know, your brother was a running back with the Falcons. He signed with the Eagles, and you said he's already moved over to wide receiver. Can you imagine him giving you a call and be like, I'm not doing that? That would be the craziest conversation in the world. To say, I'm not going to do...
I mean, they also skipped a step. He got drafted as a corner.
Okay, yeah.
He started playing as a corner, and then he got moved to running back, and then he got moved to receiver.
But he's still in the NFL, and I would argue that
in the NFL
that's what you want to do. I mean, he could have said, I'm staying corner, I'm not listening to you. And then what do? They cut him?
That is what happened to a player that I had 2 days ago.
They asked him to move positions, and
they told him he's going to play a new position, and he's like, well, why am I playing out of position? Can I play my position? And they cut him the next day.
It's a different
I knew it was going to happen.
It's a different world.
Not to say anything.
Yeah, again...
I'm at the point where I know what's going to happen. Because I know the actual people that are in charge of of making the decisions. I know them as people. I know how they are. I know how they react.
I want to talk about that for just a second, because I don't think there's enough value placed on that aspect. When you say you know the people who are in charge, again, you have to have relationships with so many individual organizations, franchises, and get to know these people. This is what you do. So you get to know them. So you know the personalities. You know this person's keyed toward this, or this person is going to do this, what they're able and what they want to put up with, and what they don't want to put up with. I think people don't put enough value in the relationship side of this. They just think it's talent, 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 which it is. But at the end of the day, there's also, I mean, I hear this all the time in a lot of different sports, but mainly like when you look at the professional level, if you're not a good teammate, if you're not good at these different skill sets, you're not valuable to them. You may be a great player, but if you're, I mean, I shouldn't say great. Great players, again, are great players. But if you're a good player, but you're not on the program, they have a problem with it.
The thing is that they're all good players. They can all play football really well. But there's a lot of factors that go into making that team. I know the GMs. I know if you were to have a certain conversation with them, they would take it in a way that is not positive for your career.
My other favorite thing, and I'm sure you deal with this, I have young children. When they tell me with a conversation that they had with somebody, and I'm like, you did not say it like that. They're like, oh yeah, and it was good. And I'm like, no, that's not good. Yeah, like when you have a young player tell you the conversation they had, and they're optimistic or they think it was a good conversation. I'm sure you've experienced that several times, because I think just as young people, we're naive into how we're perceived. Yeah,
the message, as innocent as they may think it is, it's not. You're telling someone they're not doing their job correctly when you say, I'm not in the right position, you need to move me. You're telling someone who's been a GM in this league for 10 plus years, and you're going to tell them that they made a mistake. What does that tell? That tells them that you're not bought into their program, that you're not trying to be there, that you're not going to be the type of player that they need in order to make the best team possible. That's what happens when you ask if they can move your position. That's what occurs in that simple sentence. So I don't fault the GM for cutting him because of that. I don't fault the GM for that. Also, I especially don't fault the GM because I had a phone call conversation with that very player the night before he did that, telling him not to do that. And he did it anyway. And he got cut the day after.
I just have to chalk that up to being young.
I'm 28. I think he's 26.
But they just think if they don't. I had a young guy I worked with and again, these aren't athletes, but I had a young guy, and I remember we had conversations with the upper management about something that was happening, right? Big money ticket, big issue. And I remember I came back to him with, this is the message, this is what they want. They're not listening to anything else. He goes, okay, I think if I just go talk to him, I'm going to get this.
No.
I said, no, you're not talking to him. It's over. We talked. He goes, no, I'm just going to go talk to him. I said, whoa. If you go talk to him, all the conversations we just had, what do you think I had an hour and a half conversation with him about? Do you think I didn't bring up all of the points you brought up? Or do you think it's just you're going to bring them up and he's going to listen to them better? I think there's that naivety in their brain of like, no, if they just hear me and they just hear my points, they're going to understand me better, and then they're going to be on my side. Like, I can persuade. It's like, yeah, you can persuade some people, sure, but this is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it took me 4 months to persuade them to get you on that team. You're not going to be able to persuade them to move your position in an hour.
I think we all have examples in whatever walks of life we're in where people have felt that if I was the one that delivered that message, I would be able to close that. I would be able to do that deal. And when you're not in the room and you don't have those conversations, you just don't understand what occurs or what can occur, if that makes sense.
It was a weird situation. He's a good player. He's a really good player. But that just goes to show it's not talent alone. Attitude, how you carry yourself, if you're willing to actually do what's best for the team in the vision of the general manager or head coach or whomever. It's not up to you. They are trying to put together their team. They're not trying to put together your team.
And now if you look at that perspective, that's now happening at the college level, but it's been happening at the college level, but now with the GM and the payments and the portal being open, it's happening at a much faster rate. To your point in earlier episodes, everyone's a free agent. Everyone can hit the market. So that means you have to be prepared for whatever that may occur. You have to be prepared as a player to look around and see what the coaches are seeing, or listening to what the coaches are saying, or be aware of what is happening. But this is the nuance that has involving football that people are just not used to.
Absolutely. And that's just, that's just kind of how things are now. And we'll continue to see more shifts and more changes, especially in the characters of players. But it does come down to the same basic concepts.
When you get a player that's really young, 8th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, those kind of areas, when you look at players that are that young, are you able to really teach them about what they're about to get into and what this looks like?
Mostly I'm teaching their parents. When it comes to the player, I try to keep them as involved as possible. It goes over their head most of the time. A lot of people still can't fathom the type of money that's being tossed around right now.
I would agree with that.
And that's grown adults that can't fathom it. That can't fathom an understanding of how crazy of a circus college sports are. I don't represent a single player that's only been at one university.
That's normal now, everybody. That's very normal.
I have a player who I had on track to be at 4 universities. They decided not to pull the trigger on something that I needed them to pull the trigger on, but that would have been their path.
I think it's interesting because everyone wants to know how well their team is performing, or how well their team did in the portal, or how well they're going to be looked at and projected into the coming season and the upcoming season, because the portal has opened, it's closed. To your point, the great players got picked up pretty quickly. There's changes to the college football landscape going into next year.
Here's the thing. Just because the portal closed, you could still take players from the portal. Just new players can't enter.
I got you.
Yeah, so
the portal's closed for entering, but the players are still in the portal, can still be picked up.
Exactly. Now, the thing is that I think fans alike, players and coaches, everybody involved of the sports world, aren't used to the amount of shifts that are being made. You used to have your favorite university's roster, right? The only new players for the most part were like 1 or 2 transfer guys, and then the rest were freshmen. Now, and you're
they
seeing
weren't
entire
playing.
lineups are changed.
Yeah, but the freshmen weren't going to play. Like, it wasn't like this freshman's going to be a big impact. You're like, in 2 years, that freshman's going to be awesome.
Exactly. So the entire lineup is now changed. You could go from 1 year having one group of 11 players to next year, it's a completely different group. Like, 2 of those guys from the original 11 last year are there still. Very common. You could have an entire different roster year over year.
It's quickly. And so if you're following your team, and again, when I look at this and I'm an average fan, if I'm watching Campus to Contracts as a player to get a contract, but if I'm an average fan and you were to say, like, when this is all settled, we'll let you know what teams we think are in the hunt, are looking pretty good. And I think everyone evaluates that based on talent. But I also think, like, who's the best GMs, who are the best at jumping into this, because the fast reactors, or the ones that take care of these players the quickest, are able to transform the rosters to the better overall.
And so here's the last point on that. The roster could be completely different between right now and August. Spring balls are over. So when you looked at your team and you saw their spring game, or you saw their spring practices, and you saw that team practice and play or whatever, that roster could be completely different by the time August comes around.
And everyone still draws to those spring games too.
Yeah.
Come watch our future.
Like, you can come watch the spring game, but tomorrow, if there's a quarterback still in the transfer portal and he's really good and he's just been holding out this whole time, he can go to any school he wants.
The money's pretty nuts. The more we talk about the money, the amount of money you're talking about, and then also, like, the amount of work everyone's taking to make sure no one knows the money. Because there's a lot of effort to make sure nobody knows how much money they're spending.
Very discreet. You don't want everyone to know. You don't want the other teams to know. You don't want anyone to really
Which
know.
is completely the opposite of professional sports. Like I could right now look up any professional contract, how long, terms, conditions. I could look up every team, how much they're spending, how close they are to the cap. If they made the cap, if they're getting fined, like for instance with baseball, high, low, basketball, same thing. So
yeah.
when you're a professional athlete, I can look up everything that I want to look up for, see how you get paid, what's your signing bonus. All of that is available for everyone to look at. When you look at college, that is not there.
Nope. I love it.
And they're just like, we're only going to share with you because they always share with you a nugget or a piece. Like we have this much money spent, and then you hear the reports, oh, this football team is spending X amount of money. And when we talk about this, it's like, yes, that's what they're telling you. That's not reality.
Yeah. And yeah. Unless you are in it, you probably don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. And I could easily see that there's a lot of hardships here. But I also think, like, even as a player who's moving around in colleges, I'm always like, geez, that seems like it's so difficult just to transfer, to move, to have to move everything. But then I go back to my younger self when I was in college. I'm like, what was I moving? How much stuff did I have? And
well, now they have cars and chains and shoes and everything.
But how much did they help them move? Like if you're transferring, I'm sure they help you. I'm sure they're not like, good luck, show up at this date.
I transferred twice in college. They didn't help me one bit.
Is it a differences or now is that the NIL deals are a lot better? So they help you with the move? Or?
Yeah. Yeah, I need a moving company. Thanks. I appreciate it.
So again, it's like I look at it and I was like, man, that'd be a pain. Because I'm an adult, and when you move as an adult, it is a pain because you got stuff.
No. You're giving me $1 million. Of course you're going to give me a moving company.
Oh, absolutely.
Heck,
so, again, what you should do if you're a moving company is you should sign deals with universities so that you can have the exclusive rights to go move these players.
You should have deals with universities that have a high traffic of influx of players coming in from the transfer portal.
Is there any surprising news that we expect here between now and the fall that either is public or is... Do you think there's any big moves? Like, I know we talked about some programs that are talking. There's some stuff you can say, a lot of stuff you can't say. But there's a huge move to get into, into the FBS, right? There's just schools that are trying to get there. And I always looked at that. I was like, that's a crazy thing to get there. Is like... What you're hearing, is that just like a pipe dream, or is every school thinking they can make it?
Okay. Now, there's a couple things here. In my opinion, every school can make it. However, sustaining it is the problem. When you go up to that level, you're going to need the money to compete at that level. You're probably not.
You're not there with the finances to compete at that level on a regular basis. Like
to win.
Okay.
You could just be an FBS school and not have any money for players. That happens a lot. There's a lot of schools that are like that. But you're not going to see them win many games.
Yep. I would agree with that. But is getting there really worthwhile for the university?
Absolutely. Okay. So if you're a university, if I was an AD at any university, doesn't matter the size, my goal is to be in the number one conference in Power 4 or Power 5. You want to be the top of the top. That is how you can will your university to, from the university standpoint, success. You could have admission, sports, money coming in for all sorts of things, not just football. You could have events, obviously. It just changes the entire atmosphere. The entire atmosphere of the university is different. For example, right? I went to Penn, and then I went to Duke. That is the same exact student. The same student can get into both schools. It's the same student. Completely different atmosphere. Completely. Most of the kids at Duke chose Duke over Penn because of sports. And they weren't athletes. The atmosphere is different. The school's more lively, more energetic. People care more about even Greek life and clubs and things of that nature. People were more expressive of themselves.
There's just an atmosphere that's built into that. That's kind of like the heartbeat, if you will, of the school.
Yeah, there's a whole section of the university, of the land of the university, dedicated to just sports and entertainment and fun. The whole section of the university. Just for that. Right?
It's certainly, I mean, from students' experiences at university, I mean, going to the game is just as much of a fun time as the people who are playing in it. And a lot of students, I mean, the student section is roaring on these teams. It's fantastic to see.
I went to a basketball game at Duke. I went to many at Penn, but I went to one at Duke against Pitt. Dude, the culture, you're sitting out there for 3 hours to stand in line as a student who's going in for free just to do that, just to go to the game. And then you have to stand the whole game because there's not enough seating. So everyone has to stand. So you just stand the whole time.
This is after waiting 3 hours, everybody.
Yeah, it's after waiting in line for 3 hours. And then you stand for the 3 hours. And then, you go home. It's an unbelievable experience. 6 hours for a game we knew we were going to win by like 40.
It's the no doubter. So if you're like, oh, it's going to be a close one, we're playing against a top-ranked team, we may lose, we may win, we need everybody there. No, everybody's there all the time. That's a fair point. So your point here is that when you build that culture, when you build that community, the whole school, the whole environment of the school is transformed.
Yes, absolutely. So to answer your question, it's extremely important to be an FBS football program. It's extremely important to have a school that's playing the top schools. You create rivalries, you create camaraderie, you create a passion for your university, right? When you meet someone in the airport or someone on the street and they're wearing, UNC gear, I always got to say something to them.
Vice versa for them to do.
Even when I got players to UNC, I got to remind those guys, I'm a Blue Devil, bro.
It's funny how that seeps into your blood system, doesn't it?
Yeah. Now, it probably doesn't really matter now. I got guys that have been to like 3 universities in 2 years. Like now it doesn't even matter.
I think
I played for them one time. I played for them one time. I played for them one time.
I think for the player, I think that's the part that I think fans are worried about losing, is that the heartbeat of that, bringing a kid up all those years and having that relationship with the university and losing that. But from your perspective, that heartbeat, that excitement for the team is still there. The players move back and forth. Do you see into the future of your crystal ball, do you see a long-term contract occurring, a 3-year deal where you cannot leave? This is the deal. You get these perks from the university, even if you get injured or what have you, and we're not going to allow you to transfer.
I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know. I don't think so. Because a lot of these kids are signing contracts at 17.
They're signing contracts instead of what?
At 17.
Oh, 17. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what you do with that. I just didn't know if there's going to be a push for that, or if you see that. It doesn't sound, if there's free agency every single year.
If they do that, then now you have to have full regulation. Now you have to have a collective bargaining agreement. You got to have, for us agents, right? You got to have that situated, a license. You got to have a whole bunch of things that go into play now. That is now public pay to play. It is pay to play, but now it's like the NCAA is acknowledging that it's pay to play. If you do that.
I wonder if we're going to get there here in the next 5 to 10 years, because again, we've talked about it, how fast things have changed. And right now, I don't think the University of Tennessee looks at their situation this offseason and they say, oh, we lost, because they've spun it as, we stood up and we have another quarterback and we're fine. And the player looks like they won too. So
we'll find out next season, just like Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. We'll find out who's the winner.
That's 100% correct.
We will find out who's the winner.
Any advice you want to give in closing marks to the young kids who are in a again, talented situation. You're getting a lot of letters. Your parents are overwhelmed. Best thing to do is just give you a call, give folks a call, get some right management.
I definitely believe you should consult with an agent, try to find one that you can trust, that you can help teach you about this situation, about the NIL space and how to maneuver in college. It's a very different world than it was 4 or 5 years ago. And, I see a lot of kids that still go into college today for free. 4 stars, 5 stars, 3 stars, and, there's not a lot of investment from the university. Not that money's a big deal to me. However, the quickest way to get on the field is to be the highest paid player in the room.
So if you're unaware of it, again, reach out, find someone you can trust. The biggest thing that I look at is, as a parent, if without any knowledge, if my kids were getting drafted or picked up or looked at, I can't even imagine what I'd be thinking. But to your point, there's a lot of money being left on the table by a lot of athletes, young athletes.
Yes.
And I think that's the other thing is, like, when you get there, guess what? You're going to find out. You're going to find out how much money is being left out there because these kids are probably going to show you.
Yeah.
So you're going to sit there and you're going to go, wait, what? I could have gotten what? And I'm only getting, and that will affect you. If you want to talk about affecting your play, that would affect my play. I would be like, wait a second, I'm doing all this and you got all of that? What did I do to myself?
No question.
So don't always take the free money. There's lots of it out there, especially for top talent. As always, this is Mason, and we're with Campus to Contracts. I appreciate your time. I know you've been burning the candle at many ends, as you've got 3 different leagues going on. You had the draft, you got the portal. It's a great time to be an agent because you certainly don't lack for hours or time or work. So, as always, thank you for joining us for this show, and I'm Brendan, and that is always Mason. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.